The Battle of Dunafon Pass, Rohan versus Isengard, a bedtime battle report from Murtagh. War has come to the Horse Lords. A power grows to their west, and even the whisperings of a poisonous traitor cannot abate the prideful anger of their leaders. Uruk-hai marauders have burned and pillaged, their aggression unchecked by the leadership of an ailing king. His son, Theodred, led a brave counter-offensive and ordered his captains to establish positions along the western border of Rohan. The Gap of Rohan is well defended, but the villages of the Westfold still burn. How are the Uruk-hai slipping into their country unseen to wreak havoc amongst their small folk? The two greatest captains of Rohan, save for the memory of the king as he was, and Theodred himself, are sent south to investigate. Erkenbrand and Eomer ride south. In the quiet vale of Dunafon lies a westbound pass through the northern reaches of the White Mountains. He who controls this pass controls a secret way through the mountains into the heartland of Rohan. Thought to be long forgotten by any enemy, it is lightly guarded. Erkenbrand and Eomer find the village of Dunafon burned. Now they are certain this pass is the route the Uruk-hai have found, bypassing the Gap of Rohan. They will need a great company of footmen to assault the pass, but in the meantime they need only shore it up, taking the hill which overlooks the pass, high ground strong enough to repel any attacker many times the size of their small raiding force. As the Eored advanced west to take the defensive high points, they could already see foul Uruk-hai powering out of the pass. "We have been spotted, my lord," Erkenbrand called to the king's nephew, whose armoured horse was already baying in anticipation. Eomer nodded grimly, narrowing his eyes. "And they have an armoured troll with them," he replied. "This day will be worthy of song." Immediately, both men began to evaluate the battlefield. To the south side of the hill was a company of armoured Uruk-hai, accompanied by a gigantic troll clad in iron. To the north of the hill, two companies of Uruks, a small group of crossbowmen, and a larger group formed up to a shield wall and backed up with a row of razor-sharp pikes. With a cry of "Forth, Eolingus!" Eomer dug in his spurs, and his battle company lurched forward, firing off a volley of arrows. One Uruk-hai fell, his companions dispassionately trampling over his fallen corpse. The Uruks returned fire, but their crossbow bolts found no flesh to bite. Meanwhile, Erkenbrand too had advanced, both companies converging at the east end of the hill to confound their enemy and enable them to concentrate their forces one way or the next. "My lord," said Feorot, an elite son of Eorl famed for his courage, "we should take the position on the hill. From there we will be unassailable." Eomer shook his head. "Our swift hooves are our greatest asset here, and they are more on us to use on soft ground than rocky hillock." Indeed, the ascent was impossible in most places, and the few paths suitable for horses looked narrow and treacherous. In response to the Rohan advance, the shield wall of Uruks broke into a jog, ignoring the hail of arrows loosed at them. They had spotted a natural bottleneck, a perfect place to hold off a cavalry charge and prevent a flanking maneuver. The Rohirrim immediately countercharged, killing two Uruk-hai, but the iron-skinned orcs held on with grim determination. Meanwhile, one brave and perhaps foolhardy Westfold of Redshield had found his way through the Uruk battle line and was charging down the small band of crossbowmen. His charge, though, was well premature, and without support, he was cut down by a deadly volley of crossbow bolts, managing only to take one of the foul Uruk-hai with him. On the southern side of the battlefield, the smell of blood had proved too much for the troll. While the Uruks had wisely decided to ascend the hill and face off any cavalry charge with the high ground in their favour, the troll had seen Erkenbrand and his friends and roared in defiance, charging towards them. The Uruk-hai were confused. Half of them followed their original orders and ascended the hill, attempting to set up a defensive position there. The other half followed the enraged troll, thinking it best to stay with the deadly creature. Meanwhile, Eomer now rode into the Uruk-hai line, evoking the battle cries of his ancestors. He felled an Uruk with ease before levelling his gaze upon their captain, who, before Eomer had the chance to respond, was upon him in a savage storm of aggression. The pike wall was faltering, and now two riders broke through, jumping over two fallen Uruk-hai to charge the crossbowmen who brought up the rear. Their fierce captain roared in defiance, countercharging the horsemen. One Westfold Redshield and Fearot, the emerald-clad son of Eöl, who had spoken previously. The Uruk-hai captain slashed upwards savagely, sidestepping the charge and cutting through horse and rider in one deadly motion. Fearot, in turn, rode down his own foe, taking two crossbow bolts to his sturdy shield. To the south, the Uruk-hai could not keep up with the bounding troll, whose bloodlust was now all out of control. Erkenbrand gritted his teeth and roared fiercely at the creature before leading a devastating charge against it. The troll swung both spear and shield at the charging horsemen, while the rest of Erkenbrand's men flanked the troll and attempted to charge the Uruks chasing after it. By now, Eomer had slain the Uruk-hai captain who had defied him, and despite inflicting several casualties of their own, the shield wall was collapsing with the loss of their leader. Behind enemy lines, hopelessly cut off, Fearot cleaved another foe with his mighty axe, before falling himself gloriously in a hail of crossbow bolts. The troll, now overextended, was hopelessly surrounded, and despite its terrifying strength, fell to the devastating Rohirrim charge. The loss of the troll was too much for the Uruk-hai, who fled at the sight of it, back up into the mountain pass from whence they came. A blast now from the horn of Hammerhand sounded the Rohan victory, but their danger was not over. Now the pass of Dunafon must be secured, and all else lay to the hope that Westfold defences would hold.